So we opened up this week's edition of NXT with Bayley versus Becky Lynch. Now, I would have thought with, Becky Lynch turning on Bayley and this being Bayley's first time of getting her hands on Becky Lynch in singles competition, the woman that essentially turned on her a few weeks ago, I would have thought that NXT would have made a little bit more of a bigger deal out of this, maybe have some kind of video package. I know the commentators were talking a lot about it on commentary, etc., but it just felt like this was there, when I really felt like this should have been like a massive revenge matchup for Bayley, and they really should have started off all guns blazing, but the match didn't really go very long. I mean, Becky Lynch is still using her old rock chick character, even though she's just formed an alliance with Sasha Banks, and she still looks a little bit awkward in the role, so I don't really know what's going on with Becky Lynch. I thought she would have a character similar to Sasha Banks, kind of like, when Sasha Banks joined with Charlotte, she kind of changed her character a little bit, so why hasn't Becky Lynch's character changed as a result of her joining up with Sasha Banks? I don't know. Like I said, this match didn't even go that long. I mean, Becky Lynch wins very, very quickly via distraction and the roll-up with the tights. And I'm just like, well, that was a bit of a waste of time. Could have done something with this because there is some heat there. There is some feud there. They could have done something with this. Now, I know Bayley is not going to be involved at the NXT TakeOver event more than likely. So why not give her a little bit of a storyline on television, involving Becky Lynch, as we all know the storyline there. And, so I just, like I said, I felt this segment was a little bit of a waste of time. I mean, you had Charlotte coming out and basically telling both of them to get the fuck out of her ring, and they do, as JR would say, like scolded dogs. But I just think they could have done a little bit more with this segment from a storyline standpoint. Maybe it's just me, but, having Charlotte come out there and Sasha Banks retreat, again, I suppose they're building to that feud now, but could have done a little bit more with the other two women in the match, in my opinion. So we have the #1 contenders to the NXT Tag Team Champions, the Vaudevillains, come out for some promo time. And I was thinking, by golly, it's about time these guys got a live mic and got to cut a promo. And basically, they wanted their title shot now because they are men. And they wanted the Lucha Dragons to put their titles on the line on the show. Only they had a different plan lined up for us, and they brought out two midget wrestlers dressed out as the Lucha Dragons and just messed around with these guys in a match doing squat thrusts and stuff like that, and ended up beating them with a neckbreaker for the win. It was, like I said, an obvious attempt to try and get heat on the Vaudevillains, even though the crowd really seemed to love it. I'm just saying, it's going to be very hard to get these guys over as heels, because even though they just beat down two midgets that didn't have a fucking chance against these guys, the crowd still enjoyed them doing it. So, I will ask this question again. Was it worthwhile turning these guys heels? I don't know. But at least they did something to try and get some heat on the Vaudevillains, who are essentially going to have to do most of the work in this feud because the Lucha Dragons don't really have too much to offer other than their in-ring style, etc. And, their lucha backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. But this was a fun promo segment, in my opinion. It was a promo segment that turned into a match, but it was still I felt was a good, unique, different kind of segment than what you'd see on NXT, and that's always good. All the YWC all just stood up at the same time as they saw a vignette for Kevin Steen, basically telling us he will debut on the 11th of December 2014, on the day of the next TakeOver show. So if you're a fan of Kevin Steen, or you're a fan of WWE bringing in the indie stars that you enjoy, then please watch NXT TakeOver, whatever it's going to be called, on the 11th of December, and you will see Kevin Steen debut. They did a whole vignette for it, and it looks like he's going to be debuting and having his first showcase at NXT TakeOver. I can't wait for that. Yet another show, yet another jobber that Baron Corbin beats in 22 seconds with the fans counting along. There are a lot of people out there may not think this is very entertaining, but clearly the fans are getting behind this, and this is actually getting really fucking over. There it is. If the fans are automatically just counting 1, 2, 3, 4 at the start of your match, expecting you to beat a guy in 20 seconds, that's a damn good sign that the character is actually getting over. But what was interesting about this segment is on Baron Corbin's way out, you had Bull Dempsey coming in, beating another jobber in probably about a minute, with the fans chanting, "Baron's better," which was entertaining as well. Even though I really don't like Bull Dempsey, I think he's a boring motherfucker. But even I thought this was kind of entertaining. And it looks like with what they've done here with, one monster and then Bull Dempsey trying to prove he's a monster, blah, blah, blah. It looks like they're building something between Baron Corbin and Bull Dempsey at the next special event. And I was hoping that Baron Corbin would have some kind of role at the next NXT TakeOver show. I just have one demand, NXT. Just one demand. Please let Baron Corbin beat the guy in 20 seconds. Signed, Mr. Parkin. So we had a Tyson Kidd and CJ Parker match, which in my opinion, for what it was leading to, went on for way too fucking long, in my opinion. It was pretty much just there to give Tyson Kidd a win and to set up to Tyson Kidd challenging Finn Balor. It's Finn Balor, apparently, for next week. So it looks like this match is going to happen next week, and it's getting to the point now with Tyson Kidd where he's making appearances on Main Event and Raw and SmackDown and stuff. I'm just thinking, with the fact that he can't go after the NXT Championship, is there really much else for him to do in NXT? So is this a good time after he's maybe put over Finn Balor and some other people in NXT, maybe Hideo Itami or whoever's going to come up next? Would it be a good idea to just not have him on NXT anymore and just have him on the WWE roster where maybe he can hopefully make a bit of a name for himself? And maybe it's about time that Tyson Kidd, as much as I respect him and I love what he's done for NXT, it just anything he's involved with now just seems a little bit pointless because he can never really reach the peak of NXT anymore. And it's like, how can you really get behind that character? But Tyson Kidd versus Finn Balor next week should be a damn good match. Really should. Once again, Enzo Amore and Colin Cassidy never fail to entertain. You know, the backstage segment they had, entertaining. The in-ring segment they had before the match with the new resident jobber tag team of Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder, real entertaining. They didn't just do their usual stick. They actually tried to add something different to it, which they should try and really do every week. Carmella's out there looking as hot as ever. So this team always entertains, in my opinion. And they even beat the new resident jobber tag team of, like I said, Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder, which is what it is. And, you know, this was kind of there to get them on TV. I mean, I don't think they'll have much of a part to play in NXT TakeOver or anything like that coming up, but at least it gets guys that I'm entertained by on TV. And then we had a nice surprise, actually. I wasn't expecting this. We had the Ascension coming out and destroying all 4 guys, which, like I said, I didn't see coming and was a legit surprise, which is always good on wrestling TV. And I guess these guys needed a little bit of heat after that main event segment a couple of weeks ago where Finn Balor and Hideo Itami pretty much took those guys out, etc. So these guys did need to get a little bit of heat off of that, especially now it seems like Tyson Kidd is locked up in a feud with Finn Balor and they're kind of just using that as a little way to keep that going forward. So I don't really have any problems with this. You know, they got a tag team on there that I'm very entertained by, and they managed to get some much-needed heat on a tag team that did actually need it. So in our main event promo segment on NXT, that's right, guys, you heard me correctly, main event promo segment on NXT, which is incredibly rare and something they don't do very often, so thumbs up there to hype up a big feud, which you need to use promos for to give heat between the two guys. We had Sami Zayn addressing the NXT universe about what happened last week and the controversial ending between him and Adrian Neville for the NXT Championship. And basically, he has something to say to Adrian Neville's face, and he was actually selling the injury as well, which was very unseen-alike, so to speak. And Sami Zayn wants one more shot at the title. And if he can't attain the goal that he's been working his whole life for and feel like he deserves, he will be done. He will walk away from NXT. And while I kind of feel that's a little bit stupid, at least it's showing us how desperate Sami Zayn actually wants this belt, which really helps to add to the story of Sami Zayn not being able to win the big one, so to speak. And what I also liked about this is you had Adrian Neville say to Sami Zayn, look, you don't have to put your career on the line, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, you had Sami Zayn getting really pissed at him and getting really emotional, like, don't undermine me, motherfucker. I know what I want to do, and it's my life, and I do what I want. Kind of like a very desperate act, but a very emotional act. Kind of felt like a small portion of a Mick Foley segment where he would raise his voice and get all emotional, you know, kind of like he did in his feud with Triple H. Like, my name is Cactus Jack. You know, really emotional. I thought that was quite good. William Regal comes out and books Adrian Neville versus Sami Zayn for the NXT Championship at the next NXT TakeOver show. So they're basically doing a rematch of last week. More about my feelings on that in a bit. I just want to talk about this. And I guess the unofficial stipulation, like I said earlier, is that if Sami Zayn doesn't beat Adrian Neville, he walks away from NXT. So you've got a little bit of stuff on the line there. Either Sami Zayn wins the belt, or he ends up walking away from NXT, not obtaining the goal that he has spent his whole life pretty much going towards. So you got a little bit there. You got a bit on the line for both guys now, which is good, especially as NXT and William Regal have billed this as, you know, one of the biggest main events they've done, which in my opinion, Adrian Neville and Sami Zayn is the biggest main event they've done so far. And while I like this segment, and I thought it added a little bit more to Sami Zayn's character, and added a little bit more to the match, there was two things. I was left a little bit miffed about Adrian Neville's character. You know, I thought the whole point of them having another match was to kind of turn him more to the heel side. You know, because we'd already established that Sami Zayn couldn't win the big one, so we didn't really need a match to determine that. If the match was going to do anything, it should really have gotten heat on Adrian Neville and turned him more to the heel side. You know, so now it doesn't really seem like it's done that because you've got Adrian Neville acting like, you know, pretty much a babyface here, and they kind of go back to all this unnecessary rematch stuff, which we didn't really need to do. You didn't need to have them, and this is why I was wondering why they were having the match last week. You know, you didn't need to have a match between Adrian Neville and Sami Zayn because we'd already determined that Sami Zayn couldn't win the big one. So we already had that aspect in the story. We didn't need to add to it. And you didn't even use that match to actually put heat on Adrian Neville by the looks of it because he's coming out as a babyface the next week. So I still wonder why they had that match, especially as you think they'd save a big match as they said it was, you know, for a big show. You wouldn't just have it on, you know, the free show, etc. So, like I said, while I like this segment, I was left a little bit miffed about Adrian Neville's character and why they had the match last week. You know, that's all. I felt they could have accomplished this, you know, without having a match and, you know, without going through the rigmarole of last week, which, you know, now kind of seems a little bit pointless. But, you know, it was nice to see, you know, two NXT guys in a promo segment hyping up a title match with something else on the line, making it feel like a big match, which this needs to feel like. And remember, this is probably going to be the end of the road to redemption for Sami Zayn. After all this time, he's come close. I think this is when they're going to do it. Because I can't see Sami Zayn walking away. Unless they're going to do some storyline with him where he's going to walk away, like a James Storm style storyline, and contemplate whether he can do this anymore and come back even more fired. But I just wonder if NXT are going to try and continue this storyline for much longer, and whether it will get to the point with Daniel, like for example with Daniel Bryan, where people probably just stop caring about it. Only they kept caring about it for Daniel Bryan. But could this go on for so long that people just think, what's the point of getting behind it? It's never going to fucking happen. I guess we'll see at NXT Takeover. But if you have any questions about NXT or any comments about it, please put them in the comment section below. I thought the show was pretty good this week. I thought it was a good main event promo segment. Nice entertainment involving Enzo and Colin Cassidy, which is always good for television. We've got a bit of a setup for next week with Tyson Kidd versus Finn Balor. Kevin Steen is going to be coming to NXT on the 11th of December. Trying to do a little bit of something between Baron Corbin and Bull Dempsey, which is very simply done, but could be quite effective with them being two monsters. The Vaudevillains had a very interesting promo segment, and a very interesting segment in general. Very entertaining, and trying to get some heat on the guys. Well, that was good. I felt that they probably should have done a bit more with the Divas segment. That was really the only sort of negative I really felt about this show, other than the fact that Tyson Kidd was really involved in a pointless match. But that's just it. So overall, I'd say a good show. Leading up to NXT, it always seems better when the shows are actually building to something, rather than, you know, about a month or so ago when it seemed like the shows were just there for the sake of being there. And that's kind of how it felt. So the shows are generally much better on the road to an NXT TakeOver show, because you've actually got something to build to, and there's actually some significance to the shows. But there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. See you next week, and I can't wait for NXT TakeOver, the next show on the 11th of December. It's going to be 5 or 6 good matches on that show. I highly recommend you go out of your way and watch it. Till then, goodbye.